Hey everybody, I'm Marty Sleva. I'm joined alongside by Brendan Graber.
What's up?
Mitch Dyer.
Howdy.
Brian Altano.
What's up?
We're here to talk about Sunset Overdrive. This is a video game that I enjoyed and I reviewed, so here's what I thought.
Sunset Overdrive is big, gorgeous, and a hell of a lot of fun. Never has getting from point A to point B in an open world game provided so much enjoyment. Now if you'll excuse me, I have to once again adorn my wolf mask, leap off the highest ledge I can find, and fire an explosive stuffed animal at a group of angry robots.
So let's talk about the style in Sunset Overdrive, which is sort of the first thing, as you see here. The game visually pops more than anything else I've played in quite a while, so I don't know, what did you guys think of it?
Yeah, I mean the visuals obviously it's hugely stand out. It's one of the most vibrant games you've ever seen, which is weird for something that the tone is, post-apocalypse, there's monsters everywhere, and it's fun.
Yeah.
Like it's the tone and the style is very much just self-involved. It is in love with itself, and I really, really appreciate that.
Yeah, I was a little turned off by sort of the initial reveal of it. It sort of had that punk rock, stick up your nose at authority, really colorful vibe, and I wasn't sure if, I think that's a thing that you can mess up pretty easily, but Insomniac really nails it. I mean, visually, the game is colorful, the city looks great, oh my god, the character customization options, like when you first get into that store and you're able to create whatever sort of a human being you want is awesome.
Yeah, I was going to mention that. It was sort of, you don't see this a lot in games these days where a group of developers will really just stick with an art style and run with it. Like, I mean, if you look at something like Assassin's Creed, the art style is realism. And Shadow of Mordor is sort of just like brown, grimy, wet guys. But this is like, I think it is because we're just far enough away from the 90s where we can be like, let's make fun of that again without it all being about like, oh, it's the era of attitude and all this stuff like that. In the 90s, we got games like this all the time, but they were talking about the era we were living in, and it was this sort of cartoon version of what we had already, which was a cartoon version of the reality that we needed.
Yeah.
And now we're so far away from it that we can do something like this as a parody and sort of look at it like, oh man, that was a funny era. Let's just go completely over the top with it. It wasn't really about like, oh, we're trying to, avenge the death of my brother. Let's shoot the cops or something like that. It wasn't like this 90s revenge story and about skateboarding with attitude. It was more about just like, let's talk about how goofy and iconic everything looked back
I mean,
then.
it's skate or die. It's,
Yeah.
The attitude
Yeah.
is totally
Totally.
skate or die.
Absolutely, and it comes across too. I mean, visually, obviously, character customization, but also just in the writing. Like the game is legitimately funny. Brendan, you're doing the guide, and we've been talking about recently about coming across these missions where this awesome sort of fourth wall breaking happens. And
Yeah,
how it's
they're
done
they're
really
really
well.
not afraid to go like, you're playing a game, let's just make fun of all these little like game mechanics.
Yeah,
and like
yeah.
when you see a character and he runs away and your character's like, wait, he doesn't have a little icon on his head, do I have to follow him? I don't get it. I'm like,
Yeah.
I was thinking the exact same thing.
Yeah, it's awesome. Like the game does not mind breaking the fourth wall. There's a boss fight where a character starts grabbing pieces of the HUD in order to slam against the boss. The respawn animations are amazing. Every time you die, the game doesn't really punish you. It's just sort of like, hey, just keep having fun, and then you respawn in a way that's always this really rad pop culture nod. Like there's one where you're firing the portal guns up. You're coming out of a sarcophagus. Like a truck pulls up and just tosses you out of it. And
That's
I don't
one of
know,
my
really
favorite
like
ones, by
yeah,
the
it's
way.
a good one. Yeah. I don't know. It's funny. The missions are really good too. I mean, obviously, it still sort of adheres to that point A to point B, but a lot of the characters you come across are super funny too.
Yeah, and like you mentioned, the writing is strong throughout and in every single mission. Like I don't think I ever heard a repeated line of dialogue.
Yeah.
So when you meet new people, they're talking to you about different things based on the mission you're on, and that's pervasive in the side missions as well. Like if you do a favor for somebody, the radio conversations you have and the stuff your character is saying about what they're doing is unique. And a lot of games, they fall back on repeated dialogue or just no speech at all while you do this meandering point A to point B side quest.
So obviously the style in Sunset Overdrive is amazing. You can see that from first class. That was really good. But the thing you don't really understand until you've put your hands on the game for like an hour or two is just how good it feels. And I saw that. That's why I wrote Turns to Monsters. But yeah, the game just feels good, and you sort of have to wrap your head around it for a little while. But the act of traversal and the combat in the game is just awesome.
And it's not to start. Like it is
No.
a serious uphill climb.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you watch trailers for this, and we talked about this a little bit before, Marty, is that you watch trailers for this, and you're like, wow, that looks super automatic and boring, just the way people are navigating that environment. And what you learn is it's really hard to make Sunset Overdrive look like that
Yeah.
because it is a skill-based thing. You do need to know how to engage with, wires. Am I gonna grind? Am I gonna drop down? I'm gonna flip up. I'm gonna air dash. I'm gonna ground stomp. Like you have all these different skills that you get over the course of the game that keeps your combat and your traversal really interesting because they're married in a really interesting way.
Sure, yeah.
And that you can use combat and traversal for either.
Yeah.
It did feel kind of slow to me at the very beginning as I was learning. Like before I got there's an air dash. I think that really ties it up in a nice bow.
That's when the game opens up, and that's when you realize, like, oh, the way that this city is constructed, and once you have the air dash, is you can get from the far west side to the far east side without ever touching the ground.
Yeah,
Which is
you
good.
become a spider monkey, just climbing up like buildings
Ooh, I
as
like
you
that.
fly into them.
And it's good because the moment you touch the ground, Sunset Overdrive kind of becomes this garbage, generic third-person
Yeah.
open-world shooter.
And I think it's done like that
by
on
design.
purpose. Like,
I mean, they literally say in the tutorial, never go on the ground. It's like, don't go down there, don't
they mean
fight
it.
down there.
yeah.
Like,
Yeah, because you're gonna get there's just like an unstoppable wave of enemies. Like enemies just come up from the sewers, come out of garbage cans.
Yeah,
Like,
it's
there's
weird that they almost like they put a bad version of the game underneath the good version of the game.
Yeah.
Like quite literally.
Yeah,
And if
yeah.
you fall off the rails, you're down on the bottom playing a generic third-person shooting
Yeah.
game. And you get back up on top, and it's like, holy shit, this is Tony Hawk with guns.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
And it feels great. The guns, obviously this is Insomniac. They did the Ratchet and Clank series and Resistance, so they know how to do really cool, interesting guns. And you unlock things, and you sort of start building these own combos in your mind. Like I would use, there's like a freeze bomb, so I would be grinding above enemies and then freezing everyone in place, and then I'd switch to like an acid sprinkler, which is sort of a mine that you throw down that'll just start spraying acid wildly everywhere, and everyone's frozen in place, and everyone's taking damage from the acid, and it was one of those like, oh, this is really cool, and I sort of just stumbled across this myself.
Yeah.
And so I really like those kind of combinations that you're able to.
That kind of
perform.
engagement too, like when you freeze somebody like that and you set something like that up, it's really cool because that's taken care of, that's solved, and if you're doing like a nighttime defense mission, that's especially helpful.
Yeah.
Like, okay, I solved this. This combat scenario is taken care of.
Set it and forget
I'm
it.
gonna go over here.
Ron Popeil.
Classic.
Yeah.
That guy, yeah. Great man.
Literally no idea.
The king of the rotisserie chicken.
Yeah.
I think it's like I almost wish they had brought a little of that stuff in a little earlier. Like I think it's sort of a discredit to the amazing game they built that you have to sort of earn.
Yeah.
I think
that
air dash
abilities.
should have been unlocked from the start. in my
Yeah.
Yeah,
opinion.
totally. Because I think it's for somebody to play it for the first time and sort of be like, this doesn't totally connect with me, and then somebody else like 2 hours in being like, it gets way better. Don't worry. Like once it all starts clicking, it reminds me
My
of
favorite argument.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just play it, man. It sucks for a while, but
Yes, yeah, and that you get that a lot, and it sucks in this game because they're right, the people who would say that.
Sure.
And it reminded me sort of Infamous Second Son in that way, where you start off and you can run up buildings and you do a few things, but by the end of the game, you're flying everywhere and you're doing all the city is just yours to
You're
take
running
over.
up walls and doing all this stuff. you
Yeah,
couldn't do
and
before.
Sunset kind of has that sort of feel to it where it takes a little while to click, but once it gets in, you kind of go, why didn't you let me do that a lot earlier?
Yeah. I think we all agree, a bit of a barrier to entry, but once you're in mechanically into that game, you are in.
Yep. Yeah.
I can't do this anymore.
So the big question with Sunset Overdrive this fall, is it worth buying an Xbox One for? Which is tough. A lot of people have asked me that. A lot of people in the office have asked me that. And I feel like my answer right now is yes.
Question mark?
Yes, question mark.
Question mark.
Because of the price drop, because of the cool white bundle that comes with the game, and because of the fact that, hey, you're going to eventually want to buy one for the suite of rad Xbox One games that are inevitably going to come in the next year.
In my mind, I spell that sweet, W-E-E-T.
Sweet
of
rad
rad
games.
games.
Yeah.
See, I never think there should be one game that sells you on a console.
Except for Mario 64.
Except for Mario 64. But there should be one game that sort of opens the door to all the other games that are
Yeah.
available there.
Yeah, the question, like, should I buy an Xbox One for this, kind of implies that this is the only reason you would ever have it.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it's like, no, if you're gonna buy an Xbox One and you want something to play, this is an awesome game. Like, like I would totally buy an Xbox One to play Sunset because it means I will get this awesome experience, and then from there I will continue to play more games.
Yeah, I think the bundle and the price drop type of thing that like really sweetens the
Yeah.
deal.
And the white console is really cool. But
$350 bucks?
Yeah, to me,
Yeah.
this reminds me a lot of Dead Rising. Like when Dead Rising
Really?
came out in right in that first, it was like what, 9 months, a year.
You mean like Dead Rising 1?
Dead Rising 1, yeah, into the 360s lifestyle.
Oh, right.
And so that was the game where it was sort of like, all right, there were some cool things beforehand, and obviously some really cool things are coming afterwards, but I'm like, this is the game, you can't play it anywhere else, and this sort of showcases like the cool things you can only do on this console. And I feel like that with Sunset Overdrive too.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, I don't know. That's what everyone. Yeah, I think we're sort of past the point of like I made a joke about Mario 64. I don't think those sort of games are going to exist anymore. Where it's like this is the seminal, defining game of a generation,
I mean,
and it
there's
comes
just so
right
many,
at the start of a
there are
generation.
so many amazing third-party games now.
Yeah.
Like the Assassin's Creed franchise, Call of Duty, Battlefield coming next year, The Witcher,
Far Cry.
Evolve,
Yeah.
Far Cry. Like there's so much that is going to be either better or exclusive to next-gen platforms. And if you're going to opt into one or the other. Like, if you want Sunset, cool. Obviously, Xbox One is the answer.
Yeah.
And there are games that are there now. There are games that are going to be there in 6 months. There are games that are going to be here in a year.
I think we're also, you know, I do what I do for a living, so I buy everything as soon as it comes out. If I need it or don't, I have a problem.
Yeah.
But when the Wii U first came out 3 holidays ago, you know, I got that. And then the next year, the PS4 and the Xbox One came out. But if you only bought a PS4 last year, and it's been a year and you're sitting around going like, I need a new system and I want something new to play, like this isn't there. This isn't anywhere else. So I think that if you need an excuse annually to sort of like build the family and make it bigger, like this would be the game I would jump in on.
Especially, and if you don't have a PS4 or an Xbox One yet, like to me, if everything we've been saying so far sounds cool, like this game is an amazing jumping off point to the new generation of consoles.
Yeah, I mean, you look at something like Halo the Master Chief Collection, that's an amazing Xbox One exclusive. It's 4 games, it's huge, it's got like 4,000 achievements. It's awesome, but it's not a new IP. Like, this is exciting because it's new. This is something different, and it's something we have literally never seen before.
It's also, you know, we're in this sort of chase for the uncanny valley to do gritty, realistic things all the time. And having something like this exist is such a step away from that, and it's such a breath of fresh air. And it's totally the games I grew up playing in the 80s and 90s, personified as a modernized version. And like I think stuff like that needs to be not rewarded in a sense, but sort of appreciated. That there is everyone trying to make every individual blade of grass, and then there's a game where you can shoot monsters made of soda.
Yeah,
It is nice because we'll see like the next couple months, like all these realistic games are going to start coming out, like in Batman and Witcher, and to be able to go, okay, well, I'm tired of those.
I've got some levity.
Yeah, you have something in between that. Like, okay, I want to go back and have a blast with a game that's not taking itself seriously. Like that's a
I like that you
combination.
called Batman realistic.
So that's what we thought of Sunset Overdrive. Thank you guys so much for joining me. This game's amazing. Tell us what you thought. You know, leave us comments, tweet at us, LO us. Do people still LO?
Yeah, I'm on
Just
Elo
us,
every
right?
day.
It was a good week.
Yeah. So for everything else Sunset Overdrive, you're already in the right place. IGN.com.